Hi, my name is Dr. Gilliam Barlow, and I'm here to talk about my poster about antibiotic resistance and the small bowel. Prolonged or repeated use of antibiotics, particularly in early childhood, can negatively impact the gut microbiome and lead to antibiotic resistance. In addition, antibiotic use has been suggested to contribute to the development of small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or SIBO. However, most of these studies were performed using stool samples. So in this study, we explored the impact of antibiotic use in the small bowel, which is central to nutrient absorption, immune function, and hormone regulation. To do this, we collected duodenal aspirates from subjects undergoing upper endoscopy via our Reimagine study and isolated the microbial DNAs and sequenced them. We also plated some of each sample to determine which ones had SIBO and compared medical histories to see which subjects had used antibiotics in the last 6 months. In total, 1,052 subjects were analysed, of whom 214 had taken antibiotics in the last 6 months. Importantly, we found there was no significant difference in the prevalence of SIBO in subjects who had or had not taken antibiotics. In addition, there were also no differences in duodenal microbiome diversity or richness between the two groups. However, we did find significant differences in antibiotic resistance profiles. Comparing antibiotic resistance ontology, or ARO phenotypes, we found that 2 were more common in subjects who had taken antibiotics in the last 6 months. The first was proteins modulating permeability to antibiotics, which confers resistance to beta-lactam antibiotics that would include penicillins, cephalosporins, and carbapenems. And the second was genes altering cell wall change, which confers resistance to a broad range of antibiotics. Lastly, as far more of the subjects in our antibiotics group were female, we broke the results down by sex. However, we found that there are no differences in the ARO profiles in male versus female subjects. So, what are our take-home messages? Taking antibiotics in the last 6 months is not associated with an increased prevalence of SIBO and does not appear to affect microbiome richness or diversity in the small bowel. However, subjects who had taken antibiotics in the last 6 months did have increased prevalence of antibiotic resistance phenotypes that confer resistance to a broad range of antibiotics, and specifically to beta-lactam antibiotics. These differences were not significantly different between male and female subjects. Thank you for listening to my poster. Please check out all of the other research that the MAST group is presenting at DDW 2026.